Well, Dr. Doepp, it's very nice to be back, to meet you again. I have been really looking forward to this meeting. What we talked about the last time, in September 2007, I have reflected a lot about and observed in people and what is going on. And the reason why I ask to meet you again is that I would like to make it even more concrete to people, because I see all that we talked about is happening and it's increasing every day, and it's very interesting about this, about the information in the energies we're talking about when we talk about radiation pulsating from the wireless society. And this term, the switching of the brain, could you describe it very clearly, so it's very easy for people to understand what is really happening?
The problem is that people do not recognize it or do not realize that they are switched. Why? As the ratio, the upper part of the brain is functioning like before. But the connections inside the brain do not exist anymore. That means no connection or association or communication between the two hemispheres. The right-handed man has left-hand side the ratio and here the emotions. And so ratio and emotions do not communicate. But we are living on the level of the ratio, or if it works well, on the level of the reason, but usually only intellectual level. And nobody knows that he has no more communication to his emotions, to his feelings. And this is because the hemispheres have no connection, and the upper part of the brain and the lower parts of the brain, the old parts of the brain, like the nuclei and the thalamus and hypothalamus, they have no connection too. Only the ratio is working. The intellectual performance may be good, usually good, but I have no deeper feeling. I don't know what is going on in my emotional life. The emotional life has a blockage, and so what in earlier times we called subconsciousness now is much bigger. The emotions are also inside the subconsciousness. They are no more open to me. The emotions are as closed to me as the subconsciousness was and is. And so my life is going only as a way of function, as a way like a robot does. Man becomes like a robot, and or you can say his life is like a voodoo. What does mean voodoo? That means if most parts and the most important parts of my brain are no more open to me, but they are living, of course, although I don't know them, I can be manipulated, like in the voodoo. In the voodoo I have a puppet, and I put a needle into the puppet, and the victim will get a pain or will die, perhaps. This is a typical kind of manipulation, and similarly we are all manipulated by every influence on our feelings and emotions and subconsciousness, and we do not know it, we do not recognize it. We are only living on the supra-consciousness level.
Okay, this explains something, because I have felt, especially since I was here the last time, that it seems like people are becoming more and more unconscious. And the reactions are so wild, in little things they just reacts so wild that it's actually scary for me, and I have a lot of temper. But this is so wild, it's so primitive in a way. I don't understand how people can behave so primitive. They say with words, they love you and they care about you and you are so great and everything. And 2 days after, when you say to them, oh, no, I cannot help you change the fuse. I have a funny incident with a fuse that went, and the person reacted so strongly that it was kind of a metaphor, you know, the fuse. And what you're just saying is that actually that's the main reason for people are getting unconscious, you can say, is that their brain is switched by the electrosmog or wireless society.
Yes, and the strongest part of the brain, which we do not know anymore, is the so-called reptile brain, the oldest brain. And this is, of course, a very brutal part of the brain. That means fighting each other becomes the main occurrence in our society, and the egoism, the egocentrism becomes more and more important. And what we learned by our Christian heritage, to love each other, it does not exist anymore. Nobody can love himself or another one or even God if he has no connection to his own feelings. That's a nonsense. It will not happen anymore. And so, of course, like in the subconsciousness, if I suppress my traumata, my traumas into the subconsciousness, it becomes more and more dirty. It becomes like in Cornwall, the moor. Mm. It becomes a moor, and what comes out are perversions. Is it correct? Perversions.
Yeah.
And if we look around in our world, what's happening? Perversions. The morality and the ethics are degenerating, and the old immoral human heritage, like at the Romans, they had games and breed, and they were happy when people were killed. This will come up again.
Yeah. When you say the dirty or the perversions, do you know the term the pain body? Eckhart Tolle, the spiritual teacher, he talks about the pain body. That's all you can say, the unconscious feelings and associations that just, you say something to people and then they empty their dustbin over you with all things that has nothing to do with the situation. It's like they cannot separate things anymore. It's just all mixed up together. So they react in a completely without reason.
Yes.
When we're talking about switching, could you say that switching actually creates dualism inside people, so they get disconnected from, you can say, their soul or from God, and therefore they are constantly in a fight inside them? It's like when you say the reptile brain, I think a lot about the beast. When we talk about the mark of the beast, could this actually, when we talk about what is going on, could the electrosmog, the wireless society, could that actually be a metaphor for the beast, which we are reading in the Bible somewhere?
Yes, it's a nice idea. I did not think it before, but it fits. It may be right that what is written in the testimony of the prophet John, may be this situation which is in front of us and which will become the so-called normality in the next years. But of course, it's far from normal. It will be a terrible future when only the profit and the having money and having power over other ones and be cruel to other ones will be the normal weight of behavior.
Right now I'm thinking, that's why everything just blocks. When I have talked to many friends or many people, and I have what I would call so-called friends, because you get a lot of surprises in this period of evolution. But most of them, I think they intend or they mean the things good when they say them. But actually what I recognize is that perhaps the switching actually makes a difference between what they say and what they really are able to do. It's like they wish to do it, but they simply can't. So they will keep...
That's right. If we look at the stewardess in an aeroplane, they are always smiling, keep smiling, but the interior is totally different. It is only a surface. And so we are living more and more as a surface. And our interior does not coincide with that. And so our words are not souled, in German, souled. Our words are only words, but the soul is not with the words. And if I speak words and if I have a smiling which is not souled, it is not true. It is only like an actor. I'm always living like an actor. And I am not authentical. I'm no more authentical. The authenticity is hidden anywhere inside of me, but I don't know it. And so I say words, and the words have no importance. They are for nothing.
And this is where I actually get a lot of confusion, or I get I wouldn't say even confused, but I get really surprised. I almost lose the ability to say something, because when I speak, I really mean what I say, and I will do whatever I can. I suggested someone that we should do a marathon, and he said yes, he would like to do it, but he didn't train. So I just had to train to do it myself because I suggested it. So you cannot suggest it and don't do it yourself. It's the way of the switching. You would just say it. Don't do it. It doesn't matter. When we talk about living only on the surface, is the switching from the electrosmog, all this, is that the reason for the increased materialism, and people are focusing about buying new shoes and doing it? In Denmark, it's like people are only focusing on their house prices and new cars and going on a holiday. But when you explain them something, have you ever thought about this might be the reason that your child is on Ritalin? They just seem to don't bother. It's the new shoes are more important. Is materialism a symptom of this?
Of course, as on the surface we are all consumers, and the purpose of life will be to consume and to increase the consume more and more, and to find new things I think I need, but I don't need them. It's only because of the manipulation I am thinking I need it, but my soul will not need it at all. It's only a kind of division of my entity of body, soul and spirit. And if I don't know my soul, I will know my spirit not at all. So spiritualism and religions will become very unimportant. Just now it's already the fact. And we are living only as consumers and as robots, I told already. And we don't know the purpose of our life. We don't know why we are on earth. We don't know the task because of which we went on earth and incarnated ourselves. And this is a very big suffering for the soul. And the spirit goes beside and says, this incarnation is over, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, that's when we two talk together. We know our purpose. We know what we are here for and what we are doing. Normally, the reaction is when I talk to people, they say, "How much money do you get from that?" And I say, "I haven't got any the last 5 years." But they say, "Why shouldn't you do this and that?" And I say, "I feel I have to do this, and therefore I do it." And that means you can say you get more lonely in a way, but you're never lonely because when you do your purpose, you're always in unity. But you don't have so many people close to you because most of them are just consumerism or consumers. Okay, when we talk about what is called Sodoma and Gomorrah in the Bible, is this what we are heading with all this focus on? Love has been, sex and love has been separated by, you can say, religion, or the Catholic Church might be a sinner in that one. But is all this focus on sex and porn and all this, has this to do with the brain again being switched to the 5 senses, or?
Yes, the porn is a typical effect of the reptile brain, and sex without love is a typical effect of the subconsciousness, where all my suppressed emotions become more and more perverse, and what comes out will be perverse, of course. And so the pedophilism and the homosexuality, also not all of them, but some of them, and the porn are typical results, and people need their criminal films every evening.
And games, computer games.
Yes,
yeah.
Computer games to fight and to shoot other aeroplanes and to win and to be the only survivor, and the other ones are only dead. It's enough if they are dead. I want to be the one which survives. This is typical reptile.
Okay, that's quite interesting, because most are there, in that behavior, or many people are. I have wondered if, all these dating concepts, people meeting each other, there should be a new one. And the concept should be that for the first 3 months, people get to know each other, they can see each other, but they do not touch each other. Mm-hmm. And in the next 3 months, they are allowed to hold hands, no kisses. That will come after the 6 months. And when we then reach for the 9 to 12 months, they will be able to intercourse, or what you say, because would it be reptile behavior that, people meet each other and the first night they will do everything?
Yes.
Would that be it's not even animal, it's perverse?
Yes. It is typical if the instinct has the priority, and the inspiration and the intuition is no more important, as I don't know my intuition, I don't know my inspiration. And the guardian angel, which gives impulses to me, doesn't come through to my consciousness.
Yeah, and it's when, let's say, because I don't use the wireless. I'm not electrosensitive, but I can feel my intuition and all these things very well. So that means when I get close to this, it's like my right brain is disappearing, and then I only have my left side, and that's not too good, because I need the other half to have a whole brain or to function.
And this is why males are more in the danger to become manipulated, as females have a better connection of their hemispheres than males. And it is more difficult for manipulators to manipulate females. Men usually are living on their ratio side. Usually. Yeah. And so males will be in a higher degree of danger in the future.
Yeah, and when we talk about women, perhaps in another sense, since in Denmark, 2/3 of the people in universities are women. So that means there will be a overweight, you can say, in the future. But when we talk about the female and the male, we all have both energies inside, and they need to combine and be in balance, harmony, to manifest things or to create things. But I have observed between men and women, when we talk about sexes, that it's like women are being manipulated big time by the electrosmog and radiation. It's like they're becoming more hard or more, I can see it in their faces, they look very stone-faced, and it's like, perhaps it's because their soul is gone or the spirit is gone, so it's only the reptile instinct. Is that how it is, or why does they become more male-like in,
Of course, if we look at the criteria, which is the importance of life, we find that in the presence in these years, we have the patriarchy. That means that what males usually think is important: cars, one-stand night, one-stand night,
yeah,
and money, and drinking, and nothing which goes deeper. This becomes the majority of the criteria for life just now. What's taking place is that what is typical for the matriarchy becomes more and goes more and more into the background, and the patriarchy becomes important for females too. The career, the competing, and fighting, and not to get children, not to become pregnant, because this is a problem for my career. All what is negative in the patriarchy becomes the importance just now. And I think, I personally think that in the year 2012 there will be a big change from this perversion of patriarchy, masochism, to the matriarchy again.
So perhaps it's actually what we're seeing now, it's like a period that it's actually an awakening period. So you could say it has to be worse to get to the other side, or we are experiencing perhaps extremes. Yes. And what we're looking at this, it's like you could say that the female energy, that's unconscious by nature, and the male energy is conscious. And you could say when people are being switched or disconnect, you could say that the soul is more connected to perhaps the female energy. If you remember my triangles on, it's not mine, it's actually, you could say it's Hermes, because it comes from somewhere in the big field. And what is it with the soul? You said something earlier about, normally you say the eyes is the expression of the soul, and people, they look half dead today, or they look like zombies. Is that what you experienced too, and could that be a description of it? Or?
Yes, the zombie life is a very good description of what happens just now. I tried it when I mentioned the voodoo. Now you said the zombie life, that's true.
Yeah.
It is the non-authentical life. I am not myself. I am only my skin. I'm only my surface. And inside there, it's empty. There's nothing in my skin anymore.
Dr. Doepp, when you meet people and are together with people, if you meet a person that is a zombie or is empty inside, what do you feel? Do you feel something? When you are.
Yes, of course I try to accept him, as he does not know what happened, and he is not conscious on his situation, And so, and I cannot tell him what's happening with him or what happened with him, as he will not accept it. So I can only try to send him from my plexus solaris some emotional waves. Perhaps he will get into a vibration. That's the best which can happen. But on the first view, I see it if the face is half and half. So it's like this, and so it's like this. Both halves of the face are very different. And the more different they are, the more he may be a zombie.
When you say that, that's actually scary, because in Denmark we have our finance minister. You know, I have been watching his face. You know, the left eye is one thing, and the right eye is another thing. It's like there's a switching inside, or a disconnection. So you can say his feeling side of the face is actually expressing he's sad about something, and the right eye is just very focused. Yes. It's like there's a complete conflict inside.
That's right. And if you put away the one half and put a mirror here and duplicate one side and then duplicate the other side, you will find the difference between surface and deepness. You will find two different persons.
When we talk about two different persons, then we talk about personality disorder, and we talk about schizophrenia and borderlines. And what I have been experiencing on my own body, you can say, and just observed is, could this actually be that the switching through the electrosmog and the wireless society, could it actually be that it makes people become more or less schizophrenia or borderlines, or due to destroying the brain? Or
yes, the first will be a neurosis, and then the borderline, and afterwards the schizophrenia or psychosis, maybe depression or agitierte Depression, the agitated. That means sometimes I'm in a depression, sometimes I'm euphoric and agitated, and it's changing every day. This is also one of the symptoms.
Okay, when we then look at a lot of people, they are having all these antidepressive medicaments, and I just, you know, I don't know if it's my reason I use or my intuition, but it's funny how they have increased together with electrosmog. It's quite obvious, isn't it, to see what is happening?
Yes, it's only a question of time when we will not be able to distinguish the people in a psychiatry and the people outside a psychiatry. They will be very similar.
Perhaps it will be more safe to be in the psychiatry than outside. Dr. Doepp, you mentioned this about the solar plexus, that you send out good emotions, good vibrations to influence other people, and perhaps they will get in a better mood. I would like to ask you something about, you have mentioned earlier about this with the astral energy, and what I experience close to when I get close to mobile masts is like it's trying to destroy my solar plexus. I feel that something is trying to get inside my solar plexus. Is that where if we talk about astral energy, is actually manipulating our solar plexus, or how do you describe it?
We have several centers of our vegetative nervous system or autonomous nervous system, and the most important is our second brain just here. And if I get a strong income of waves into my body, I recognize it here as it has a cramp. If my solar plexus cramps to defend himself, I know there came a big negative wave upon me. And second is the sinus of the heart regulation. The autonomous center of the heart is also very sensitive. Some people recognize it more here, some more here. And the third, of course, in our frontal brain. If I am in a hotel, and most hotels have a lot of metal and glass and not much wood anymore, and so the hotel room may be like a chamber of with a very high electromagnetic burden for me. And then I recognize it here, and my skin really gets a hardening. I can look into the mirror and see how my skin becomes hard, and I get an eczema. That means here is the entrance door to my frontal brain, where my emotions are situated.
Is that also why that you can get a tingling if you are around negative people or people with some dark energy?
Yes.
They start up here. Also, you can feel the pulse or
yes.
something. The chakra protecting itself. Or
yes,
yeah,
it's starting to pulsate, and the brain tries to defend itself by a thickening of the skin. Of course, it will not help really, but I know if this happens, I have to change my place. I cannot sleep there anymore. I cannot work there anymore. I have to change my place.
This I'm happy you said that, because many people, they don't understand how I have moved so much and why I can feel those things I can. But I just feel that you have to be in the nature. You have to be far away from the noise of, you can say, people who are switched. Or when we said this about the God connection, or that people, the normal Christian or believing in Christ or whatever, would it be too hard, or would it be too tough to call electrosmog and the wireless society for you can say the messenger of Antichrist, or that actually disconnect people from who they really are, from their soul, from their spirit connection? Would that be too harsh, or is that actually what we are seeing?
It may be that this will happen in 2 or 3 years, when it will become very hard on Earth, I think, as compared with the situation we had in the mobile phone transmitters area some years ago, and what happens in the next years. It will be 10 and 100 times more intensive what happens. And also the frequencies are going up more and more. We had the 900 megahertz, then the 1.8 gigahertz. Now we have the 2.4 gigahertz. We will have the 3.9 gigahertz. It becomes more and more close to the endogenous frequencies of our brain. And so via the resonance phenomenon, our brain will be unable to work like it would be, or like it likes. The brain is forced to work like it is influenced from outside. When you say that the brain has difficulties in working, then the word mind control just comes up, because actually this, normally mind control, you think of the bad guys trying to influence people in some way, but could this actually just be a sort of electrosmog, the pulsatings from the mobile industry? Could this just be a sort of mind control, but it's not really telling people to do what they have to do, but it's actually just shutting them down, so they are not becoming creative and very active. They are more like, again, zombies. This would be a kind of voodoo attack, or would it? Is that actually what is happening? That the people, they just don't function anymore, so they just consume and hope that they will. They even probably don't hope, but that they just survive for tomorrow. We saw it in Germany. The mood of the whole German people for years was very low. Also, the situation was not really bad, but the Germans were pessimistic and depressed, and since about 6 or maybe 9 months it changed. Also, just now we have on Earth a very difficult financial situation. The Germans are optimistic and they consume again more and more. This doesn't happen for coincidence. This is a manipulation of whole areas on Earth and of people from satellites and from HARP. So we can manipulate people to depress their brain function and to accelerate their brain function.
This is why they call it Have a Happy Day. Sometimes I even feel it. You know the harp, you can see when the harp is active, you can see it in the sky, with the skies looking like blankets on top of each other.
Yes, you have like a chess plate. You have the clouds are not circled, they are rectangular, and they have lines. This is typical.
Yeah, this might be a little way out for people when they hear it the first time, because when most people are switched or disconnected, you know, they don't believe in anything. They just live, or they even don't live. They just consume and watch porn and violent movies and go to the gym and exercise for 4 or 5 hours a day, or be on the couch or anything. You said to me before when we were having lunch that most people are just vegetating and not living. And if you were going to ask people, they would say they were living, but they have no purpose. And purpose is not to consume or to paint your house, or purpose is to do something that is, how do you say, creating something that is reaching for more than yourself. Actually, when you reach for many people or the planet, then you are doing something for yourself, because you are part of the whole.
Yes. The self-realization is the purpose. And the self-realizations, according to my individual talents and abilities and what my soul has for this life as a program, maybe even a mission or a task. But if all people live in the same way, consume the same, have holidays and look in the TV the same, there is no individuality. It is a mess. And of course, the soul of all these mess people, they will not succeed in their purpose of life.
They will actually be blocked or disconnected from, and they will have a hard lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Champions League, for instance, the music of the Champions League is like a religious music. The Champions League for 2 billion of people on Earth is a substitute for religion, meanwhile. And all these 2 billion have the same ideas. They laugh at the same moment.
Yeah.
They are sad at the same moment. There's no individuality anymore.
It's like the gladiator. It's like when you were back in Rome.
Yes.
And the sports game is actually just... And I've seen they're building a lot of new stadiums around the globe, and they all call them arenas.
Yes.
So we are moving to that point once again.
That's right.
You once showed me something when you were in the switching mode, and because most people are, so they could benefit from this. You showed me an exercise that is quite good on video, because it's very active. Can you tell me a little about what it actually does, so you know, people who are living in their intellect or very down to earth, or so people can understand what it is, so that they don't feel they look funny, and then show us what it is you do with your hands.
Yes, the task of these procedures is to reconstitute connections in brain in body and between brain and body, and so resynchronize what is disconnected. And of course we could do it in this way, but in this way the massage of the eyebrows is more effective. As we know, we have the pyramid nerve anatomy in our brain. That means left brain and right body and so on. And if we do it in this way, we connect the brain and the body downwards, the pyramid dissection. And if we do it in this way, we use the possibility to come into our hearing part of the brain. We know that the hearing brain is a very old brain, but even older is the smelling brain, of course. But it's difficult to make a procedure to resynchronize the smelling brain. Perhaps I can use the incense smoke, and incense smoke really has a very positive effect on the brain. And I use it every evening. I smoke incense, and this procedure connects both hemispheres, 2 fingers right hand side, 2 fingers left hand side, and so I connect both hemispheres, and I connect the frontal brain and the back part, the occipital brain. And the fourth I usually do is this. It is all from the science of kinesiology, and all 4 procedures, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, all together I need only 2 minutes, and I should do it at least in the morning, but better is 3 times per day.
Yeah, but Dr. Doepp, we live in these stress times, you know, and you are asking for 3 times 2 minutes, that's 6 minutes. Isn't that a lot to invest in yourself? You know, you have to consume. So it's yeah, but would it be difficult for people to do if they are in a switching state? Could that be something that actually hold them back?
If I use all 4 procedures after another, the probability that I am no more switched afterwards is about 90%. So the success rate is really high. But I saw in patients who got the recommendation to do these procedures 3 times per day, they refused. They have an interior resistance against these procedures, as a switched brain does not like to be de-switched. A brain in a switching wants to stay in the switching situation. It's difficult.
I spend a lot of time in nature, just being in nature and running or just going on bicycle. And it's actually, I feel more grounded, and I feel in love, and everything is perfect. But it seems like I've just lived a place where there was totally nature around, extremely nice nature. But the people living in this big house, they were always inside the house and using technology all the time. And you know, I'm trying to balance my life, not to use technology too much, and stay a lot of time in nature and get out of the cities. And so, is electrosmog a sort of prison, or
yes.
It's a prison of the mind, or?
Yes, that's a very good idea to say that electrosmog produces that your house is a prison for you, but it gives you so-called safety, it gives you so-called security. As the ratio fears the contents of the soul, and the ratio, if it is separated from the soul, feels a security. And so the prison is a kind of security. The prison may be my lifestyle and maybe my house. And so if I live at the coast, I will not go and swim, as the water may be a treatment for me. And so I avoid water, I avoid the sea, I avoid swimming, not to be treated, which means not to be changed.
Yeah, and we know that from all sorts of habits that we. It takes 30 days or 14 days to change a habit, but actually, people, if they live close to the sea or something, they should just jump into the water, though they don't like it. You know, actually to perhaps de-switch in one go, or yeah, it's quite interesting because people seem to be really caught in their own prison. And I don't know if you have observed it or recognized it, but I see a lot of people are getting so passive, they are getting more and more willingness, and the apathy is increasing. But they are projecting so much. They are in the constant fight or flight situation, it seems like. So they are projecting so much. And it's sometimes I'm surprised, can't they even see that they are being totally unfair and totally, I might even thought of saying something that was not very nice, but they are out of themselves. But what with the switching term, I like it very much together with the disconnection, because I think it's the same. Actually, what is happening, the communication of the brain is not working, and of course the switching has much bigger, how do you say, with the brain hemispheres and the different kind of brains. But when we're talking about the now, is it actually possible for people to? They talk a lot about being in the now, and they have read the book The Power of Now, and they talk about it, talk about Krishnamurti, and talk about everything about the now. But I don't know a lot of people who actually really know what the now is, because the now is in my universe. I should say I'm not just having a world, I'm having a universe. That's much more, because it is a universe. The now is understanding, and understanding is action, and action means living and not vegetating, living. Do you think it's possible to be able to stay centered in the now when you are influenced by this and caught in your own prison? What would it take for people to be in the now?
What would it take to be in the now? Yes, that's the question.
Yeah.
We are working against the windmill, like Don Quixote.
Yeah.
As what is the state now is almost nothing against in 2 years. In 2 years, the transmitters, intensities, frequencies, and so, and our electrosmog surrounding will be 100 times higher than today. And my own hope is that the pendulum needs a very high deviation from the middle to this extreme in order to get the power for the other extreme, to go back to the other extreme.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that the way of the pendulum to the extreme we describe now may be modified. It seems it has to go to this extreme, like in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
It did not work to persuade the people to change themselves.
Yeah.
The catastrophe was necessary, and the disaster. And so it may be in this time too.
Is there actually a meaning about doing anything about this, because all people seem to don't bother? But then I have another way of looking at it, because I know it's right, and you know it's right, because we feel it and we know why we are doing these things. I just say that I'm not really doing this for for all people. I'm only doing it for the ones who are awakened or who are just about to awake, because those are the ones who are going to carry, you say, the light further and directing people when it gets more confusing in 2 years' time. Then we have to be, I don't know how many it needs, but we have to be more that can point the direction and support people in making some choices that will help them out of the darkness they are caught into. So it's not about I'm trying to raise myself over others. It's just ordinary consumers and people just walking blindly through life. They're not important. I have even expressed that in Denmark, you can take 4 million people straight away. It doesn't matter, because those 4 million will not change a bit in this world. And people, they sometimes say, oh, you believe you're something special. I say, I'm special. We all are. We're all unique when we find our true purpose and get connected. And it's like, I don't know if that has to do with the switching, but it seems that like people are a lot in resistance. You know, it's like I asked them, do you think the world would have worked if we had 24 million Gandhis at a time? No, of course not. It always takes unique persons who dare to walk the road of truth, or what you say, and keep stuck to it, no matter how they are being pushed and everything. But it's like people are very much in resistance. Is that what you experience too, or?
Yes, what you told is very true. Very true. That's my experience too. And I think that about 5% of the population should be those ones who remain clear in their mind, in order not to be drawn to the vegetating instead of living. And I think that between 5 and 10% of the population are very strong souls, and these strong souls cannot be manipulated. They keep their consciousness, and for those I think we make our interview now.
Yeah, that's right. I just had to wake up, you know. I was pondering a little, and of course when we talk about switching, because switching is actually destroying of the brain, so it doesn't work. When we talk about traffic security, you know, on the way down we were seeing some tremendous things, but we're talking behavior in general. We see all the greed, and people are being egoistic, primitive, violent. What are your experiences with children, and you know, the Ritalin, and how do you recognize all this in children?
Yes, the children are in very high danger, as the children containing high developed souls are very creative. They are very active, maybe overactive, and they cannot sit and stand still. They are always in a move. And so they are those ones who get Ritalin. And this is very dangerous, that the wrong children get the wrong medicine. And so I can only recommend every parent, every mother and every father not to give Ritalin to the child, but to stand that this child is overactive. This soul is so, maybe this soul is so strong that the body needs this overactivity in order to become very creative in some years. But if you give Ritalin, the creativity is over. It becomes a dependency or an addiction, and the brain is gone for this life.
And I remember you telling about, you know, children using mobile phones, watching computer games, playing computer all the time. They will almost be in a switching mode constantly. And with these Wi-Fi systems, the wireless internet systems they're putting up in schools all over the world, or at least in the Western world, it's like they're being bombarded from all day, 24 hours. Is that actually, when we talk about the development of brain, that means that brain won't develop right, or is that right understood, or?
I think concerning this topic we have to think about the positive in the negative. Of course, the brain will suffer a lot from that. But I compare it with our childhood 50 years ago, or like I read in the books 100 years ago, the education was even worse. The children had no freedom at all. They got punishment for everything, and so the result was a rigidity. In around 1900, if we look at this time, there was total rigidity. And now we come into the other extreme, it will be a chaos. But out of the chaos there will come a new order, I hope so. And so concerning our children, I force myself to see the positive in the negative.
Yeah, and of course there are many. There's not only the either side. It's always both are, how to say, available. But when I have a look at the teenagers today, many teenagers, I just see. Sometimes I have difficulties in finding the positive, because I don't know if it's tough to call it stupidity, but I just remember that I had more energy as a teenager and would be able to help my parents. And do you think that's just the new age and I'm just actually an old guy not understanding that it can be so important with all these being so hooked up to technology, or is it I'm just old-fashioned, perhaps? Or
it seems we are old-fashioned, yes. And if I would be a child just now, perhaps I would also carry an MP player all day long and have the earphones all day long and hear rock and pop and metal, heavy metal all day long. I think only a few children can resist on this trends on Earth. And so if 90% of the children and teenagers run in the same way to become wonderful consumers of music and TV and play games and so on, I can only hope that the chaos which is produced in their brain will be a basics after 2012 for a very new development. I hope so.
The Professor Ola Johansson I talked to in Sweden last week, he said we are talking about the indoor generation now and not the outdoor. We were the outdoor, playing football, going on bike. We were always out, difficult to get in.
It's right. The children and teenagers are really an indoor generation. And it is not possible that this may be a positive development. It is a negative development, as mankind is born to have contact to nature, yeah, and not to apparatus and devices and so.
When I, the model with the two triangles, when I studied the Hermes, the Kybalion on this, I just thought, oh, there's something wrong with these triangles because something is opposite down. And then I looked at it and said, no, everything can be described that way. And actually, people are being disconnected and suppressed in the female energy we both have, so that people become unconscious because they are cut off from their male side. That means going into nature, doing some activity and doing sports. But if they're not in contact with that male side, they'll just keep stuck in, they want stimulances and they want to watch things. They do not express themselves. That's a male energy, to express something and to come out with the energy.
The positive part of the male energy is to be in nature and to cut wood and to be very active using muscles and to walk and to run and so on. Sports, not artificial sports, but life sports, is the positive part of the male energy. But the male energy of today is artificial. I do this only in the fitness center, no more in nature.
Yeah.
And the male energy nowadays is to be number one,
yeah.
to make a career,
yeah.
and to compete with the others and to fight them off. This is the negative part of male energy, and this has come up now.
In both sexes?
Yes.
Have you ever been into a fitness studio and tried to run on one of these?
I cannot do it. I have tried.
Yeah, I have too. You fall off?
No, after 3 minutes I stop.
Yeah.
Why cannot I go into the forest and walk and run and jog? Why should I go onto a machine?
Yeah.
That's, for me, it's nonsense.
I've just tried it once just to... I never go into one of these places because it's so loud music and everything. It just doesn't function. But I just did a marathon, but I couldn't run 500 meters on one of those machines. I would fall off and throw up and everything. I guess we can agree about that the DNA or the DNS is very important in the human organism. Dr. Doepp, have you heard about the European Union, the Reflex study, and what the results was and so? Have you heard about that project, and have you something you can point out? Or?
Yes, it is a very good study, and the only one which could be able to persuade usual scientists, university scientists. But if we look at what's happening in science and in the magazines of science and medicine magazines, the topics we are talking about are no more important. They are out. The mobile phone industry and the IT industry have succeeded. We too have no chance anymore. If there may be a reflex study or not, it doesn't have any influence anymore. We have failed. We too and the other ones have failed. We will not be able to change the development taking place, but we can only give information to those which are open for information. But we will not change the development. That's over. I have to say, sorry.
Yeah, but we can still awaken those who are ready, and then that will make a change, and then sometime in 2,000 years, perhaps that change will break through. Not in 2,000, in few years.
And just now in the German newspaper Spiegel, there was written that a study in Vienna, having proven the damages of the DNA done by mobile phones, was a mistake. Not only an error, but it was a criminal mistake. And this, of course, will be an argument against us, of course. And I think it is not our task to prove DNA damages, but it is a problem of the DNA information. The intensity of the mobile phones is not strong enough to damage the DNA, but to desynchronize the DNA and to disinform the DNA.
Switching of the DNA.
Yes.
You can say.
Also, the field around the DNA. The DNA is only the matter, and around the DNA there's the DNA field. And this field is damaged and is switched. But this we cannot prove.
No.
We cannot prove.
Every time you start to talk about energy, frequency and vibration, as Nikola Tesla, he said, if you want to understand the universe, think of those three: energy, frequency and vibration. every time you mention the word vibration. The whole of science, or most of science, it's actually just for the dustbin, because they don't know anything about info medicine, they don't know anything about frequency and vibration, but they keep looking from the old world, and they don't understand. You cannot understand vibration with their glasses on. That would be impossible.
Yes.
It's biophysics, and the biophysics is much more to the real of life instead of chemistry. When I talked to Professor Ole Johansson about this, he said too that the reflex study is the perfect, and it just shows so important an issue. He's not talking about the vibration side, he's talking about the other side, but then you say the info side. That means we have two different angles, but you are both doctors, and that's quite interesting. The funny thing is, or it's not funny, it's actually sad, but Motorola, the American, funny enough, American company, a mobile company, every time something about DNS comes out, Motorola shuts it down, cuts the funding, and make scientists disappear or get no jobs. And it was Henry Lai from Washington, he was one of the first one, and they actually, the reflex study actually was a duplication or replication of that study, and it was 12 research groups, and it's so obvious that that is actually, you can say that it's really there's really a hidden agenda.
Yes, if truth would be important on Earth, you would be right. But truth is not important. Important is what is shown as pseudo-truth into the magazines. And if you read the magazines of the IT industries, I get them, they are for nothing, I don't pay, I get them. They are sure they have the victory. They are totally sure they have the victory.
Yeah.
If a reflex study exists or doesn't exist, it's not important anymore. It's over, believe me.
But when we talk about being in, you know, the Mayan calendar as well, the Mayan people, and we are in the ethical period now. It started in '99 and will continue to 2011. And actually right now, today, the 27th of May, we are almost we are a little over half year in a period that goes on to November 2008, where a lot of things will be revealed. And I guess I'm sitting here today and was in Sweden last week because it's time now for something to be revealed that will bring on the track another ethical way of life, because a lot of people will be, they will have a hard time now, because a guy like me, I'm not in the system, so I will put exposure to every person with every name. It's not, I'm not doing it for to beat them or something. I just do it because I work from ethical side and I work for the truth, and that means this is truth. It's nothing about being after them, because it's truth, and then they can just scientifically explain to me that it's not truth. If they do that, they will show themselves, so they won't do it. Ole Johansson, the professor at Karolinska, he said, he told me a story that actually shows a lot about the ethical or unethical side, is that in the European Union he was asking a question: what is the need for all these Wi-Fi systems, mobile masts, all these equipment we have within the last 10 years? It's amazing that they can produce it so fast, new models every week or day or so. And he asked him what the need was, and this guy in charge of this meeting, he just looked at him and said, "You are probably asking the best question ever asked at the European Union." And I remember Ole, he was smiling a little because he found it strange that I should be and he said to him, there is no need, there has never been no need for wireless internet, for Wi-Fi systems, for all these things, but they are generator for huge profits. It's only profit.
Yes, there is also no need to go back to the so-called Cold War, but we go back to the Cold War. There's no need to produce new missiles, to produce new nuclear weapons, but they are produced, and they will go into the satellites, and this will be one part of the next war. And the other part will be the war of the rays and of the waves. And this we cannot recognize. We can only recognize it by such an instrument. Yeah. But our body is not able to recognize the war of the waves and of the rays. Yeah. But we will suffer, and many will die if it happens. But there's no need for all this.
Yeah.
No, it's not reasonable.
No. And that's why, because we have no reason. We only got the ratio.
Yes.
So the reason is just bye-bye. Have you seen the movie The Matrix?
Yes.
And where one of the characters is saying, Kansas is going bye-bye when he's taking the red pill.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, reason. That's the red pill, actually. But should we experiment a little with, now you showed the device here, the microwave detector, and I will plug in, so we can hear how different kinds of products are being,
yes.
I will just lift it up,
yes.
But if you try to turn it on, this is a deck phone, so there's a deck phone somewhere in this building.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but okay, then I will just plug now Now I will put in the wireless internet.
Yes.
And I will just bring it up here. It sounds like horses running or something, or machine gun, or. And remember, this is just without downloading anything. This is just plugged in.
Yes.
And this does 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And the gigahertz.
Yes.
2.45.
2.4 gigahertz is a very dangerous frequency for our brain.
Yeah. Okay, I will just, so we don't get too much radiation here, I will just... Will you try to call the number so we can hear? And then now I will just...
Yes, it's really amazing.
Now comes that's the deck phone in this room.
Yes.
And then I have brought a special, you can say, gift for you, because last time we spoke you talked about especially the Siemens gigasets are the worst. So I found this gigaset placed in an office and used for a whole communication system. And now I will plug it in, and then we will hear how that sounds.
Yes. 2 meters. Still the same. Yes, it's very impressive indeed.
People say, oh, when you show this device to an engineer, I say, oh, this is just some gadget who just makes something to scare people. And then I say, I probably don't know anyone who will spend about 1 million euros to invent and to put something like that in production if it was just a gadget, because that's a big risk if you have to get 1 million euros back. But this actually makes us aware about things that we cannot touch, we cannot... What is it? Where is it?
No, the human body unfortunately has no sensitive organ for that. We have learned sound and light and smell and so, but the human body is not produced for this danger. I think it's at least 12,000 years ago when maybe in Atlantis it was the last time when we had this kind of danger for humans. And so the body did not develop a sensual organ for that. But the more important it is to have devices like this and to know about the danger.
Yes, to make awareness, and then people can become conscious.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, when we talk, it can be difficult for people to understand when we talk about manipulation and mind control, because when they are switched, it will be very difficult to understand these themes. But let's say if you were an unethical government or authority that would like to keep things as they are and have good consumers and make people do a lot of things that they don't really want to do, but you would like them to do, this would actually, you could say this would actually be the dream. Devices they have created to hold people, suppress people in the prison or...
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true what you said. I can add nothing to that.
Okay. Well, what about when we talk about, I remember you said that actually it is not the devices people are becoming addicted to, but it is the electrosmog. So it's not actually the phone people are addicted to, but the, you can say, negative influences. Can you explain a bit more of that? And what the energy actually is, the energy from this electrosmog, astral energy, or what you mentioned something earlier.
The energy is the origin of this energy is, like I said in the beginning, it is the Lucifer energy. The Lucifer energy contains in the positive the strength, and in the negative the power and the manipulation by using the power. And in this situation we are now, the energy is a Luciferic energy, and the frequencies have a resonance to the frequencies of the body, and so we have the bad energy and the right frequency in order to manipulate, and this combination is perfect. The usual university science does not accept the principle of resonance, but the whole universe is based on resonance. As resonance means communication, and communication means information flow, and means that everything, everyone in the universe comes up and goes in the flow of the evolution, goes further. And now, I think in these years we are now inside, it is I hope the last attempt to stop the evolution and to break it and to bring people on the wrong path.
When you talk about evolution,
yes.
You know, I see this as, it doesn't matter who it is or what it is, but it's somebody's trying to capture the human evolution, and I call it Lucifer too. It's a Luciferian agenda to keep us in the senses and to keep us in unknowing what it's all about, and forgetting who we really are and what we are here for. Yeah, I ask you about the electrosmog being a sort of astral energy, or
Lucifer is like astral energy. As the Earth in the situation it is now, and mankind like it is now, is a very big danger, not only for our solar system but for the whole universe. The harmony and the rhythms and the scaling of the whole universe is disturbed by this Earth just now.
Yeah. Well, when you said that science does not say good for resonance, or the resonance principle, isn't that a little bit funny? Because when we talk about the HARP system, the HARP is actually using the ionosphere to make a resonance between the Earth and the ionosphere to manipulate weather and everything.
Yes.
And HARP is owned by the US Air Force and the US Navy. Isn't that a bit funny if they say that the principle of resonance doesn't exist?
Yeah, of course, the US military knows a lot. They know 10 times more than they are open to the public. They know a lot, but they use it for exactly the wrong purpose. If they would use their knowledge, also the knowledge of the NASA is very high. If they would use it for mankind's development, for the positive development, the Earth could become a paradise. What we know about increasing the situation of energy consume and of information transfer and of agriculture and so on. The knowledge is existing, but it is under the surface and is used for the opposite purpose.
Okay, when we talk about Nikola Tesla, they have, of course, they have all his inventions and hidden them and free energy and everything that's possible, and actually using them in the bad way, just like on Atlantis, when we say that it's the same situation. Right now, Nikola Tesla, that was a lot about resonance vibration. When we talk about the wireless society, isn't that actually something to do with resonance to make it work?
Of course, if I am in resonance with a treatment, maybe homeopathy or frequency treatment, I have a wonderful effect by a very low intensity. The intensity may be in the micro Tesla or nano Tesla range, or micro or nano Tesla watt intensity. Resonance makes a very high information effect by a very low energy, and this is a principle which would serve mankind to solve almost all problems we have today. But of course we know that there are several people on Earth who don't want the problems to be solved. They need the increase of the problems in order to have some interest of their own.
Yeah, you say they need the problems, so they need big chaos, and then to turn order out of chaos. That's what they need, without mentioning too much, but that's actually their aim. But now I just had the thought, you know, the physics institutes of the world, we have in Denmark, we have Niels Bohr Institute. Actually, wouldn't physics scientists not know about resonance? Wouldn't that be quite simple for them to know? If they are studying in the universe, how can they study that without knowing about resonance?
Yes, so that's a miracle for me too. They are studying so intensively in some matters concerning matter, but they don't make studies and they don't make progress in the field of subtle energy and subtle information transfer. They only need gigahertz and terahertz and terawatts, and they only use, especially in the CERN, beside of Geneva, they use the highest possible intensities in order to solve the problems of the matter. But the matter is not as important as energy, and energy is not as important as information. And information and vibration are close together. And so they are dealing with the wrong items. And they will not come to results which are important for mankind.
The Russian biophysicist and Nobel Prize winner Albert Georgi, I think his name is.
Hungarian, yes.
Yeah. He said that science is to see what everyone has seen and to think what no one else has thought.
Mm-hmm.
And actually we should pass that one on perhaps to the physics institutes, because if this is kind of a, you can say that this is a kind of a Luciferian system. Yeah, Ole Johansson, he told me, because he said it all links together. he was talking to his students one place, and he says, "Oh, it's good that people are being irradiated with microwaves and electrosmart. That's very good." And the students said, "No, no, 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 no. That's not good. That's not." Yes, he said, "You should believe it's good because it's good for your pensions. It's good for your money." Mm-hmm. And they got all confused and stressed because they could feel their ethics inside that this is, what are we doing here? And they have to go on because then they get good money and they can buy big cars and all this, but they will get more and more empty inside.
If you're a student of physics, you learn all the new theories, quantum dynamics and radio relativity and so, but nobody tells the students that the knowledge of physics nowadays does not fit. There are contradictions wherever you look. There's no theory can really be accepted. And this is why I'm very glad about this theory of Dr. Müller of the global scaling, which I told maybe a cosmic scaling, not only a dual system but a ternary system. This is the vibration basics of the universe, of the earth, and of mankind, and of everything. If you ask what is vibration, it is this scaling. It is a standing wave starting at the frequency of the proton, very low, very high, of course, going up to the frequency of a big star. If someone mentions the name vibration, everyone thinks this is esoteric. And esoteric is something for belief and not knowledge. But vibration has a very strong physical basics. It is the theory of the global scaling or cosmic scaling, which means that in the universe we have two, or I say three, kinds of standing waves: the vacuum wave, the matter wave, and the information, the energy wave. And these three are connected to each other and they organize the whole universe. The order we have in the universe, the distance between Sun and Mercurius and Venus and Earth and Mars and so on, and the distance to our next galaxies, it is all ordered by the global scaling. The standing waves inside the universe, which go from the lowest to the biggest extension. And as it is logarithmically organized, it is no problem to go from the electron up to a galaxy. For logarithmic scaling, it is no problem at all. And you can describe the whole topics existing and the whole measures, the whole you can explain meters and kilograms and hertz and every kind of physical dimension you can explain by this theory, and you can find out which of them are optimal, which are suboptimal, which are bad, and which are constructive and which are destructive. It's It's all explainable. And so nobody should say anymore vibration is an esoteric item. It is no esoteric anymore.
Actually, when you say that, you could say that what you have just explained, that would be leading edge of science. You can say going together with consciousness, spirit. It's actually where we are heading. So probably everyone who talks about vibration being something esoteric, they should perhaps go back to the school books and then read a little more, or start to reflect for themselves, or
yes, to look at what the Russian scientists know and say, and very progressive German scientists know and say. As I told already, the Americans know a lot, but they hide everything and use it for military purposes. And just nowadays, the Russians and the Germans don't hide anything, but bring everything to be open. And this is a big progress would be a big progress if someone would read about the Germans, Dr. Müller, Dr. Warnke, Dr. Meil, Dr. Popp.
Fritz Albert Popp.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
The biophysics.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And also look what the Russians say to all this. Popp says the same like the Russian Gurwitch said, and so there are close connections. And this, according to my opinion, is the top of the science nowadays.
Would this be in your book, which will be out soon?
A lot of this is in this book.
Okay. Dr. Doepp, before we end for today, have you got something, like the 3 master words or keywords or something to say to people or parents or people who are caught in switching, or something that might be useful for them to?
Yes, as you mentioned already, to be afraid is the worst what you can do. To fear is very bad, but you have to know what happens and try to protect yourself by using such a measuring device and by using a protection device like I have it in very small form, always in my pocket. It consists of some spirals, vortexes, and some powder of minerals and of jewelries. And if you look at the modern storage physics, Intel and so, what do they find out? That a small crystal has 100 times more storage capacity than the newest Intel chip has. And what is inside here? Crystals. And they have the ability to build a firewall around the carrier. Perhaps you may have it here also. A firewall, and this works like an antenna for the electrosmog, and it is not hurt by electrosmog. It takes it in, and the effect stays for years. It does not drop down, and so your body has less work to do to protect itself against electrosmog. This is a wonderful aid for men.
Okay, can you say that it actually, it sucks the electrosmog or takes it in, and actually perhaps turns it around, so it actually flips the energy?
This is our hope, and according to our experiments we did, it really turns the negative electrosmog around to positive working, biologically positive working waves, called ray guard. Ray guard, the name is really true.
Okay, Dr. Doepp, you have some other, how do you say, variants of the ray guard, and what does that do, or those doing, compared to the little one?
The principle is the same, but the larger ones are of course stronger and have a higher radius where they work. This is about 1 meter, this is about 3, maybe 5 meters, and this is about 10 up to 15 meters. And this one contains a special wood, and we have to think it over that the wood is also a protector, as Professor Miles said, the scalar waves don't have metals as antennas, but they have dielectricas as antennas. That means for the scalar waves, which are biologically more important than the Hertzian waves, for those wood works like a victim for us. If you look at the dying forests, they are no more produced by sulfuric acids. Also, the dying of the forests is produced by the rays, by the electrosmog. And this is similar to the Israeli Bundeslade, I don't know in English, the Israeli they had in Salomon's times. It was like a condensator, that means a gold and a wood and a gold, and it could store high amounts of energy, because wood is very important to protect people from electrosmog. And so this one is most important. And the most effective wood is that one with the highest dielectrical constant. It is the Israeli acacia, I don't know in English, the Israeli acacia, the same like 5,000 years ago, today has the highest effect. And so we have the vortexes made from metal, we have columns made from metal, we have crystals and minerals and some jewelries, and this is similar to what the future of the IT companies will be too. They will use such materials in the future instead of the chips we have nowadays. This is already our future, but in order to protect men like a firewall.
I remember I read something you wrote about the small one, the orange one, about it actually when we have this firewall around us, that it actually, how to say it, it strengthens our connection to, yeah, you might say God, but you can also say to yourself, to your energy field, to whatever you like to call it, but it actually, so you become yourself. It strengthens your connection to yourself, you can say, or to your higher self, spirit, soul. I guess it's the same with that one, or?
That's right, as the divine rays are not protected, or we are not protected against the divine rays. They have such a high frequency that no instrument is able to be a firewall. But if we protect us against the technical electrosmog, the divine rays and waves reach a less disturbed brain, and so will have a better effect and will allow us to get a new contact to God.
The model with the triangles, what I actually tried to explain with that model was that when we have all this electrosmog coming, we will be disconnected in our connection to God, and therefore such kind of products as this will help the connection. But it's actually my main theme was that people should understand what the disturbing pulsations, as we just heard, and microwaves, they are actually disconnecting us. And in my universe, I see God as stillness, stillness of mind, because when we have a good balance in mind, we know it all. We are connected to everything. That was my intention of making that illustration.
Yes, I agree with your illustration. Yes, that's a fine image.
That's funny, because the first time I talked to you, you were surprised and said, "Oh, you understand." And I can say the same, because it's not many, they don't understand this model. They do not see it because they're not connected, so they cannot understand. They only have the ratio. And actually, Dr. Doepp, when we're talking about the ratio, you only have that. I have the sense that if you think of an old computer with no hard disk on it, we had only the diskettes. If you turned the computer off before saving it, it were gone. And I feel the same is what is happening to people who are being switched. If I look at you and you tell me something, the minute I turn my head away, I forgot.
Yes, it's thought.
Is that the same as ratio? When you haven't got anything else, then it cannot come into consciousness. Is that the point, or?
Yes, that's right. This is why the people are able to look at the TV and at the games 12 hours per day, and if you take the PC, it's 14 hours per day, as there's nothing stored anymore. It's in here and out here. The storage is in the consciousness, and in the consciousness, negative emotions, the negative effects, and the brutal and cruel pictures, they are stored, but the information is not stored anymore.
I read somewhere that I think it was an international dictionary of describing the word consciousness. They say we don't know where it comes from, we don't know what it do, we don't know what it does. But the picture I have got, or the intuition I have got, is just that our brain is just, you can say, a processor. And when we have the connection to upstairs, you might say, above, then we are connected to our consciousness, or not our consciousness, but a field of consciousness where the memory is, or where everything is stored. Mm-hmm. And when the connection gets, you say, influenced, we lose. We might not remember some things because the connection is electrosmoked or polluted. And if it gets too much, when we become totally switched, mm-hmm. then we are unconscious. And more or less, yeah.
Yes, and if you look at the mankind on Earth, there are about 2 billion of people which live according to law religions. The Muslims think it is okay and it is enough if I pray 5 times per day and do what Allah says or wants. And the Jews and the Catholics, very similar, only the Protestants not so similar. And these law religions don't need an individual connection to God. Or if you have God above or God in your heart, doesn't matter. You don't need an individual connection to God. And this is why on earth there is more and more fanaticism and fundamentalism out of the law religions. As if I have an individual connection to God. God will say me in every moment, or my soul will say me in every moment what I should do and what is right and wrong. But if I only follow the 10 Commandments or the laws of the Quran, everything what happens has a plausibility. It seems to be plausible. Also, the suicide terrorists, they are in their brain. It is plausible what they do, but certainly they have no connection to God.
It can be a bit risky to say, but I believe that religion is actually making people unconscious and switching people into dualism, and therefore they get into the fear and low energy. And then all the aggression and everything starts. So you could say religion is actually there's one law in the universe, and that is what you are aware of, you become conscious about. And I guess that is what we have been talking about today, that people should put their awareness to things and then start to become conscious and then find out for themselves what they should do and not.
Yes, that's a wonderful summary of what we think.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Doepp. I'm sorry, I need to, we could talk, I guess, for days if we would like, but we have to move on and then to wake up those that we need to wake up. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you too. It was a pleasure to have such wonderful questions.